Good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. My name is Dan Holdridge. I'm a survivor of September 11th, 2001 at the United States Pentagon. 20 years ago now, September 11th, 2001, I was working in the renovated section or newly renovated section of the Pentagon. And I was a computer guy. I was installing computer networks for the Pentagon. The Pentagon hadn't had a major renovation since its opened in 1941. And ironically, the day it opened in 1941 was September 11th. And so 60 years to the day. So I was a computer guy. I installed the computer networks. I was doing my dream job. And that day it was a normal day, beautiful outside, a normal Tuesday morning. And the skies were nice. And I got a phone call that morning. And the phone call delayed me. The phone call was with a vendor that I had a call with every Wednesday for 2 years straight. And so she asked if we could speak on a Tuesday morning. I'm like, sure, that's kind of odd, but we've done it for so long on Wednesdays, but sure, we can do that. Didn't think nothing of it. And so after the phone call ended, the woman called me back. Katie is her name. And Katie said, Daniel, never guess what happened. I'm like, what happened? She said, well, a plane just flew into the trade centers in New York. I'm like, wow, what a horrible accident. I mean, big plane, small plane? She goes, no, it was a big plane. I'm like, wow, that's terrible. And I'm sure a lot of your teachers and the folks that were alive at that point, some of you folks probably weren't born yet, but a lot of you probably felt the same way if you were there that day, if you were watching like I was. And so as I spoke with this woman, we spoke for a little bit, and then she said, Dan, you'll never guess what. I'm like, what could be possibly next? And she said, a second plane hit the other trade center. So one's an accident, two, we're at war. And so that's horrible. I've never been a part of that. I wasn't in the military. I was just on a temporary assignment at the Pentagon. So didn't have any experience with any of that. And so very, very difficult day for everyone around the world. And so we saw what anger and hatred can do at its worst. And so we ended up, I hung up with that woman, and I did what a lot of folks did. I called home and I spoke to my dad. And that was nearly the last time I spoke to my dad. I let him know that, Dad, I just want to let you know that in New York, the trade centers were hit by planes. It looks like our nation's at war. And he was like, what are you talking about? I said, yeah, check it out online. I said, but don't worry, Dad, I'm in the Pentagon. It's a fortress. We made it through the Cold War. I'll be fine. So as I was trying to convince my dad I was going to be okay, I was kind of trying to convince myself I was going to be okay. And so, yeah, I hung up with my dad. We were up on the 5th floor of the Pentagon. Now, the Pentagon's got the 5 sides, right? And so it's got 5 different areas of office space, or called corridors. And the corridors, you have the E ring, which is the outermost, then the D, then the C, B, and then the A is the center courtyard or corridor area in the very beginning or very center of it. And so with that in mind, I've been able to, I was on my way down to the Naval Command Center. It was in the C ring. It's kind of like halfway through. And my friend Bobby Shelby asked me for a smoke break. And so I don't smoke, but that's how I started my book, how a cigarette and a clipboard saved my life. Bobby, which I didn't learn until this year, a few weeks ago when he and I were talking, he usually waited to take smoke breaks till after his workday, but for some unknown reason, he just heard a voice and said, take a smoke break now. And he did. And I'm grateful that he listened to that. So that delayed us. And so he ended up lighting up a cigarette, and I had a clipboard that day. I never usually carried one, but I had one that day, and it was in my left hand. In my right hand, I was reading on my cell phone browser about New York. And I was like, geez, Bobby, I grew up in a state nearby New York, in Connecticut. I was like, I knew the trade centers. I figured a lot of people must be hurt. Very sad. And then I said, geez, Bobby, what's next? The Pentagon? Then 3, 2, 1, boom, the blast went off. And the blast, it picked me up, and it picked me and Bobby up and threw us a good distance. And then the building started coming down on top of us. We both were knocked out. I thought I had died. It was a awful, awful day. And so when I came to, I looked over and I saw Bobby, and he was covered in blood and soot, but he was alive. And then I could just move my left arm. If you go ahead and take your left arm out and just go ahead and just move it left and right. Can you do that for me? Yeah, that's how I figured out I was alive. And then I did this thing that I never will take for granted ever again. I took a breath in, and now when I was breathing in, I didn't realize I was breathing in jet fumes, pulverized cement, glass, whatever blew through those walls that landed on top of us. So I breathed in a lot of bad stuff, but I was alive. I was alive. And never take that for granted ever again. Every day's a gift. Every moment's a gift. And the beautiful part of the story, well, it's not for the shock and awe, because I think we have that enough in our days. The beautiful part is that you can learn from what I went through without having to go through what I did. And so if you can, for a moment, just put everything else that's going on in your life away, and just for a moment, and just say to yourself, I appreciate everything I have. If you start every day with that one statement, I appreciate everything I have, it's amazing how your life can change in ways that you could never have fathomed. And there's a different 9/11 in all of our lives of varying degrees, probably not as bad as this one that happened to me, but there's some times in life when we're challenged by something that's really hard to get through, perhaps the loss of a loved one. Maybe it's some challenges at home where we may not know where our next meal is coming from, or it's going to be cold out and we may not have the clothing we had hoped to have. And so we're faced with these horrible realities. But if we can just start with a moment of saying, I'm grateful for all I have, then you'll find that you have more than you thought you knew. And you start from that point. The moment you feel entitled to anything in life, it steals from your ability to appreciate all you have. And that's a very, very powerful thing. You've got to be able to realize that when you say, I deserve something, or I'm entitled to something, you're counting on somebody else to deliver. Whatever that delivery is, whether it's your happiness, whether it's your being accepted, whether it's anything that's coming from somebody else. But when you realize that true power of happiness in your life comes from within, that's when you can change the focus from entitlement to an appreciation. And when you appreciate all you have, sometimes it takes a 9/11 to truly appreciate all we have, because when it's almost gone, that's when you realize all you have. But if you can take some time, I encourage you to take 90 minutes, and I'll tell you why in just a moment. But 90 minutes, I'm going to ask you to challenge you to figure out all the things in life that you can appreciate. So September 11th, I was able to crawl out of the rubble and grab the guy that was next to me, Bobby, and we went to a pillar right nearby because we figured that would hold up. And to our right, looking out towards the E-ring, the outermost of the Pentagon, there was a fireball coming at us. That was the plane exploding with all the jet fuel exploding. And so when we looked to the center courtyard area, it was the least amount of smoke and we could get through. And so we went running towards that way. And then people started screaming, "You've been hit, you've been hit." I didn't know what that meant, but I looked down and I was covered in blood and soot, and I was a mess. Um, I ended up sitting down on a park bench, and that was in the center courtyard, and the pain just started to set in, and it was like aching all over. And then I looked down and I didn't have my cell phone. My cell phone was smashed because a piece of cement came down and smashed out of my hand, saved my right hand. My face, I had a clipboard and I flipped it and it saved my face. That's how I started in my book, how a clipboard and a cigarette saved my life. Um, I'm so grateful that those things had happened. Grateful for the phone call that delayed me in the morning. Just grateful for a smoke break that happened. Not that I smoke, but um, my buddy Bobby Shelby, who was next to me, that took that smoke break. Um, I had a friend for life now. And so as I was sitting on a park bench, I figured I had to let my family know I was alive. I didn't know how though. I didn't have a cell phone. So I started borrowing people's cell phones off their waist as they were running by me. And they kept saying, you can have it, but it doesn't work. All the cell phones went dead right after 9/11 because so many calls were trying to be made and called out and called in at the same time that the system went down. And so there was a two-way radio, a walkie-talkie, if you will, that one of my colleagues had. And I heard on that two-way radio that they asked if I could hear, is Dan alive? Is Dan okay? And so I grabbed that two-way radio and I said, I'm alive. And so at that moment, my sister had called my dad and said, hey, is Danny okay? And he was like, yeah, I just talked to him. She said, he's okay after the Pentagon was hit. And he was like, the what? And he didn't know. And so it took him 90 minutes to track down somebody at my former office in Boston who reached my former colleagues in California, who then got a hold of my former boss in Arlington, Virginia, who got me on the two-way radio. So 90 minutes. Remember I had mentioned about 90 minutes before? The second part of the 90 minutes is my mom's a school teacher. She's retired now, but she was a school teacher. And still hard. She was teaching a class, and the principal pulled her out of the class and said, Mrs. Holdridge, the nation had just experienced a terrorist attack. They hit the Pentagon, and we don't know if your son's okay. My mom's from a small community, small town, and my mom was really proud that I was working in the Pentagon. And so they saw that and thought of my mom. And so my mom dropped to one knee, started crying, and then was brought to a room where her sister, my aunt, was waiting for her. They waited 90 minutes to hear if I was alive. If you just one more time could tell Dan that you love him. If they could just please just give him one more shot to go to that vacation spot we always spoke of. If we could just go fishing one more time. Just one more time. All the things that my family thought about, prayed about for 90 minutes. I'm asking you to take 90 minutes. And that's my gift to you today. See, I'm the only one speaking as a survivor of the Pentagon 20 years later. So this message, I'm hopefully in a very meaningful way honoring the 184 lives that were lost next to me by sharing this message of appreciation for all we have. And my challenge to you is to write down 90 minutes on a sheet of paper that's right near you. Write down 90 minutes and then put it on a sticky note. And I want you to put that 90 minutes sticky note right next to your alarm clock, or maybe put it onto your bathroom mirror. So it's the first thing you see when you get up in the morning, the last thing you see when you go to bed. And it's going to be our reminder to take 90 minutes. It doesn't need to be 90 minutes all at once. 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there. Just make it 90 minutes. But think about all the things that you want to do in life and write them down. And then the most important part of it is all the people that you care about in your life. Tell them how you feel. There's not a September 12th for everyone. And I've learned that more than anyone. And so I encourage you now more than ever to appreciate everything you have, appreciate every moment you have. And when we're done with our call today, I'm going to encourage you to talk to your students that are next to you, and as well as your teacher. And by the end of the day, I'm going to challenge you to just say those words, I appreciate you. 3 words, I appreciate you. I want you to say that to everyone that's around you, including your teachers. And you will notice that your life gets better instantly. Instantly. It's incredible. When we appreciate each other, we can stop future 9/11s from happening. That's my mission in life. That's my gift to you. I don't get paid for doing this stuff. I'm just here because I care about each of you. And I'm hoping in some meaningful way that you can take this message that from a survivor, from somebody that shouldn't have survived, from where I was standing and where I was, there's no reason I'm here except to be here with you and in some way inspire you to take 90 minutes and make sure that everyone that you care about knows how you feel. And once you do that, I really encourage you to keep doing it and don't stop appreciating people, because you'll realize that when you're appreciating people, you don't have time to feel entitled to things. When you appreciate your teachers, you won't feel entitled to being disappointed by your homework assignments. You'll appreciate the fact that they're trying to make you better. And you all have greatness within you, every one of you. You all have a gift. You all have a valuable gift. And you're a beautiful person. You have gifts in your heart. And unless you start appreciating everything that you have and who you are, that those gifts don't come out. And we've got to be good to each other. I'm the chief executive officer of a corporation, and I've been doing that for about 20 years now. And I can tell you without a doubt, the greatest leadership skill that each of you can have for your life is kindness. Kindness. I can tell you that is the greatest skill set that you can ever bring to any table of negotiation or any table of any business or any operation that you want to do in life, any job that you can do, from a waiter to a machinist to you name it. Everything that you can do to make your life better when built on kindness becomes something that we can prevent 9/11s from ever happening again. And that's why I'm here. When you're kind to other people, that spreads. When you're negative to other people, that spreads too. So we have a choice every day when we wake up. Are we going to appreciate all we have, or are we going to feel entitled to what we have? If you feel entitled to 3 square meals a day, I encourage you to volunteer at a soup kitchen, a place where people appreciate every chew. If you think you're, entitled to perhaps some sort of a roof over your head, a home with heat, volunteer at a homeless shelter and see people who would absolutely just do anything to have what you have. When you focus on what you appreciate, you realize that you can become somebody you never thought you could be. And what you focus on is who you become. What you focus on is who you become. And that's the gift. September 11th was such a horrible day. It was such an awful day. I mean, I was carried out from the center triage area. I was brought out to the center courtyard to the triage area. Triage area meaning where they kind of diagnose your injuries and the like. And there was 4 different colored ribbons that they gave out that day: a green, a yellow, a red, and a black. The green one I got, which was awesome, meant I was going to live. I needed medical attention, but I was going to live. The yellow one that Bobby had gotten he needed medical attention soon, or it could become worse very quickly. So, and so then there was red that was given to people that they were doing what's called instant surgery. Again, I had no idea what any of this stuff was. I was a computer guy. So, still hard. So people were getting literally surgery happening right next. And then black was people who had taken their last life, last breath. They had passed on. Every color band was around me on September 11th when I was laying there in the triage. Every colored band, and I can never forget the smell, the smells, the cries, the prayers, anything. It was awful. 20 years. It's over 7,000 days ago, and I'm still feeling it like it's yesterday. That's what hatred does. That's what hatred does. There's no place in this world for hatred. They're just not. There's no need for it. And a hopeful thing is that you can all help end it. When you see hatred stuff on the internet, stop it. Insert goodness. You know, if folks are being mean on the social media stuff, stop it. Somehow, say something, do something. What people do on computers nowadays to make people feel horrible about themselves or others is the same thing that happened on September 11th. People are dying. They're fearful. They don't want to live. September 11th showed us what can happen on the grandest of scales when people don't solve their differences. When people use violence to further an agenda that they feel entitled to, instead of appreciating the differences that people all have and respecting those differences. Our country needs us now more than ever. Our world needs us now more than ever. We can absolutely be better people when we appreciate all we have and all those around us. It spreads. It spreads. As much as negativity does as well, your positivity can do just the same thing, but for the good. And that's what we need to take from September 11th. If all of you are studying, a lot of you may be studying in books, you have history right in front of you. I'm it. I'm your history class, your lesson. But I can tell you that not one history book that you'll ever read, not one history book that you'll be ever taught from will shed a tear. That's where I come in. And if we're ever going to learn from history, we need to understand the impact of what we all do every day. And that's why I'm here today. That's why I'm here. You all have the ability to change this world in a meaningful way. And if we just think of September 11th as a day in history, we can't appreciate what happened. We don't have the ability to appreciate the gifts that we have. You need to take that time now. In this 20th anniversary of September 11th, there's no better time to take that break in our lives. Just hit the emergency stop of our life and just figure out what we can be grateful for. What are the gifts that we have in our life? And be sure that we tell those people that are the gifts in our lives how we feel about them. There's a legacy to be led for all of us. And if there's not a September 12th, what will we be remembered for? Will we be remembered for anything that we were entitled to? The new car, the house, the material things? No. We're remembered. Our legacies are solely based on everything that we appreciate. Others, how we treat others, how we're good to each other. Just sending a thank you note to people. Grabbing a sticky note, a pad of them, and writing thank you. And just putting it on the people that are around you. that I appreciate you, anything of that nature. We need to change the course of how things are going in our world right now. And it's up to each one of us. None of us is absolved from that responsibility. That if we want a world where there's peace, we need to bring on the love for one another. And that's what we've got to do. And so September 11th, as much as it's one of the worst days in our lives, it opened my eyes to an ability and an opportunity to be with you here today. And so I take that very seriously, that commitment that I'm going to speak with all of you and hopefully inspire you all to make this world a little bit better. You see, there's this woman named Erin Anderson who was on 9/11. She was sitting at home and she felt she had to do something to help somebody else. And so she was just down the road from the Pentagon. She got in her car, she drove down to where the Pentagon was. She saw Bobby and I on the side of the road bleeding. She said, "Get in, I'll take you to the hospital." Erin Anderson, what I call her my guardian angel, she brought us to the hospital. Bobby got transferred to another one. And then I ended up staying at that clinic that I was at. And she asked if I minded if she stayed with me all day because her husband just got deployed as a military person for a year because of 9/11. Would I mind if she stayed with me? And I said, "Would you mind staying with me? I don't have anyone here. My family's up in New England, a long way away. I've got no one either." I tell that story because there's an Erin Anderson in each one of you. It's so easy to say it's not my job. But if you want to be a world changer, if you want to see goodness in the world, then it starts with each of you. A good friend of mine once said, "If it's to be, it begins with me." And that's the case in here. So I know my time is going to be wrapping up here, but I just want to leave you with one final story, if I may. And this is really kind of brings it home for everyone. And I've got some props here. All right. And then if you folks have any questions, I want you to please put them in the chat box because I love answering your questions. So on the 10th anniversary of September 11th, so 10 years ago, I went down to the Pentagon with my fiance, who's now my wife, and I showed her the Pentagon where we were, the memorial, and I wanted her to see what I had gone through, just so that she understands what she was going to be signing up for to be my wife. And so after that visit, I flew back home. I did a talk that evening in my stadium, in the high school stadium, where they play football in my hometown. And I spoke to the whole community that evening. And then the next morning, I flew out to this University of Wisconsin at Pottsville. And it's in a very, very remote area of Wisconsin in the US. And so I did my talk, kind of like I visited with you today. And then at the very end, I opened it up for questions, kind of what I'm going to do for you folks. So I hope you have questions. I'll answer anything. I'm happy to do so. And so at the very end, there was a woman that stood up and said, "Mr. Holdridge, your speech changed my life." I'm like, wow, that's amazing. Thank you. That's why I do what I do. And she said, "Mr. Holdridge," and her tears just started coming down her face. She had her husband stand up next to her and she said, "Mr. Holdridge, I'm going to give you my shoes." I'm like, you're going to give me your shoes? I'm like, I don't want to be rude here, right? I'm in front of a huge audience. I'm like, I don't wear women's shoes, but thank you. And she was like, no, you don't understand. I'm like, what's that? She said, "I lost my two sons. One was 10 years old and he died of a medical condition, and they didn't figure it out until it was too late. His older brother, who was just a couple years older, thought the only way he could be with his brother again is if he took his own life. And he committed suicide." Very, very sad. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. She said, after hearing what you go through after 9/11, your struggle with trying to find the positive in such a very difficult situation, she said, you're the very first person since this tragedy happened for my family that truly understands what it's like to walk in my shoes. These are her shoes. And so, and so there's a lot of messages that come with this, but let this sink in. These are her shoes. These are from 10 years ago. And so pretty awesome flip-flops. I haven't worn them, but they've been with me every day since then. And I tell this story for a lot of reasons. One is I went down, I gave her a hug, and I said, your story changed my life. And so she goes, one other thing, Dan. I'm like, what's that? I'm like, I'm like, anything else? Geez, really, what else could it be? And she said, my feet don't stink. I'm like, your what? Your feet don't stink? I'm like, okay, that's fine. I won't worry about that. I was really concerned about that, but not really, but okay. So I gave her a hug and she said, God bless you. And I said the same. And so I tell you this story because you'll never know the impact you can have on somebody else's life until you learn how to walk in their shoes. Have you ever heard that phrase, walk in each other's shoes? And it's sometimes those little grains of salt or sand that are in somebody's shoe that people walk every day with, that grain of sand being something like perhaps there's an ill person at home that they're always worried about. Perhaps that they're not getting food. Might be something, but it's not until we learn to walk in each other's shoes that we can truly appreciate what people walk through every day in their lives. And if we want to be world changers, we've got to be able to learn that it's not about us. It's not all about us. Sometimes the greatest things in the world we can do is taking the weight off somebody else. And so when you learn to walk in each other's shoes, you do that. You learn more of what somebody else, you care about other people in meaningful ways. And so I encourage you to do that, to learn to walk in each other's shoes, because the amazing thing that you can do is when you learn to run in each other's shoes, that's when you don't care what their skin color is. You don't care what religion they are. You don't care about anything about their background. You just care about being there for someone so that you can make the world a little bit better. That's how we change the world. That's the recipe. There's no secret. That's how we change the world. You'll never know the impact your words will have until you open yourselves up to appreciating all you have, because there may be someday that somebody might do something similar, like giving you their shoes. And then you can sit back and realize that your life was changed for the better. And September 11th, no matter how bad of a day that was, has given me an opportunity to be with you today. And I'm hoping in some way we can all make this world a little bit better place, so there's not a September 11th ever again. And I sincerely appreciate all of your time today. 90 minutes homework. Please don't forget to do it. And if you go to my website, I'd love to hear some results of your 90 minutes discussions of how you told people that you care about them. I've heard some pretty amazing stories through the years, and it helps me do what I do. So again, thank you very, very much for having me here today. Mr. Kraus, if there's anything I could do for you or
absolutely. First of all, I want to say we appreciate you. I think that's safe to say all of us here appreciate you. And I want to say that I appreciate all of you students, and I sincerely hope that everybody does take Dan's advice as far as the 90 minutes. In the chat, you'll find his website. We've already gotten some questions. Is it okay if we dive right into some of those student questions?
Please
so
do.
First of all, we have a big thank you from Paris in the chat. That was really nice of you guys. One of the students in Spain wanted to know, did you feel a great burden? Like, they talk about survivor's guilt. Did you have that, and how did you deal with it?
It's a great question. Did I feel survivor's guilt? Absolutely. There was It was a very a long period of time. You see, when I was in the triage area getting medical treatment for the first time, after the plane had hit, a paramedic came running over and said, "Get out of there. There's a second plane incoming." That was the plane that crashed in Pennsylvania shortly thereafter, but we didn't know it yet. And so for 6 months, I didn't sleep. I kept waiting for that second plane to come. And in my mind, every noise, everything, I reacted to. And so, as far as survivor's guilt, it really came to a head about a year afterwards when I was just having a really difficult time. And so I went and got counseling. I got therapy with somebody that was trained to help me get the skills I needed so that I didn't live with guilt, that I found that I can replace that guilt with making the world a little bit better. And a big part of that was being able to come up with a message that I could share with all of you. And so I dealt with PTSD, and I still do. It's something that a lot of veterans that in all of our countries are dealing with now, with folks coming home from the wars in Afghanistan and the like. There's a lot of PTSD out there now, and it's going to take all of us, our entire world, to wrap our arms around those folks and make sure they know they're appreciated. So great question.
And you speak about appreciation in your book that I was fortunate to be able to read, and it's also listed on its website. But instead of weapons of mass destruction, you have weapons of mass appreciation. So could you kind of like delve into that? Because I feel like the main message of your story is appreciating others and being kind to one another. And if that's one takeaway that the students can take away, I feel like that would be great. So could you kind of delve a little bit more into that weapons of mass appreciation? I'll mute.
Sure, thank you. So the weapons of mass appreciation, I felt that when you start focusing all of your energy, all of your efforts on actually making this world better, when you focus on appreciating all you have, then you can wipe out all the other things that are negative in our world. And you can't do both. You can't appreciate something and you can't feel entitled at the same time. It's impossible. And in 20 years of really thinking hard about my message of how I want to help people with my second shot at life, that was my main message, is that I needed to have a clear understanding that if we're appreciating something, if we're appreciating people, if we're appreciating the opportunities we have, appreciating being here today, that when we appreciate, what we focus on is who you become. And if you're focusing on appreciation, this weapons of mass appreciation, we can knock out all the hatred in this world. And it's not overnight. We have to do it every day. And you'll notice it when you do more and more. Just like anything good, exercise isn't going to change your body overnight, right? We got to build on that every day. Well, this is exercise for our mind. This is exercise for our heart. And you've got to build that. And once you build that appreciation for all you have, your happiness levels will go to places that you never thought could be imagined. And the best part about it, you're not depending your happiness on anyone else. You're creating it yourself. And there's no greater gift that you can give to yourself than that.
That is a wonderful message, and your book was absolutely incredible. So I'll go ahead and go with a couple more questions, and then we'll let you go. But we have Daniela from Spain. I'm not sure if she wanted me to ask. I'll just ask. It's fine, Daniela. She wanted to know that it's obvious that your life changed a lot. Could you explain the way that you started seeing life in comparison with how you did before versus how you did after?
Sure. So great question. I would have to say beforehand, I would use statements like, I'll get to it. And one day I'm going to do this. After 9/11, I've done it. I'll just do it. And probably to a fault at times, but I always said I was going to travel to Europe, and in 2005, I did it. I always said I was going to get my master's degree, and someday I'm going to get it. I graduated in 2004 with my master's. Wanted to start a family, done it. Everything that I always said someday became now, because you're going to realize, as young as you maybe are now, it goes by fast. And there's not a September 12th for everyone. So if you live every day in that moment of appreciating all you have, and you focus on what you truly want to be, and that's through being a gift to others, when you do that, it's incredible how many opportunities open up for you, because you're focusing on this greatness that you can become. And it's really hard. I'm not saying this is easy. But it's very hard to focus on appreciation. It's not something that's going to happen easy, but I encourage you to give it a shot. And the more you do it, the more it will benefit your life. But yeah, don't worry about, sometimes let's not worry about tomorrow. Let's just take care of today and build those dreams, write them down and share them with those that you care about, and make it happen. Make it happen. Now just do it. In honor of 184 people that died 10 feet from me, do it. Go after your dreams, plan them out, and then do it. Don't just keep saying it'll happen someday, because someday doesn't translate to September 12th. And so someday's got to be now. So be a difference maker, be a world changer, improve lives around you, and you'll see how great life can truly be.
Absolutely. And we thank you for spending time with us today and giving us that message. And all of the students, if you have any reviews or comments about today's learning event, feel free to email them to me. It's in the chat, or sign up for any of our future learning events that are offered for free to all educators and students. And Dan, before we let you go, can you just reiterate to these students, as they go off into the world and kind of figure out who they want to be and what kind of person they want to become, could you by chance impose any wisdom on them as far as the importance of that day-to-day kindness?
So today's a gift, whether you realize it or not. Today is a gift. You woke up, you're here, you have caring people that provided you with your internet and your computer so that we could all be together. It's a gift. Whether you see that as a gift or now or not, well, it really determines on how much you can be a world changer. When you start allowing yourself to just say, geez, I'm so lucky. I've got a cell phone. I've got money in my pocket. I've got teachers that care about me. Everything that you can do from this point forward to appreciate what you have, and to make sure that, again, make sure you tell everyone all around you today, that's my mission for you. Tell them that you appreciate them. When you start doing this stuff, it may seem weird, may seem odd, maybe uncomfortable sometimes. But when you do that, you open up a whole new you. And people will see you more for the gift that you truly are. And you will see others for the gift that they are. And not for nothing, but there's the word presence. We think presence, there's gifts, but then there's also being right there in the presence of somebody. And that's the gift. And folks, if there's anything I can leave with you today, don't let a negative world determine who you're going to be. Don't let the negativity that's out there. You have greatness within you. You have a gift. And the greatest gift that you can give others is kindness. And if you take anything from my September 11th story today, please be that it's be good to each other. Be good to each other. That message of be good to each other is from the mother of a September 11th victim in New York, who I met, and I asked, what would you like me to tell audiences around the world? And she said, please tell everyone to be good to each other. That's what Josh would want. And so, in memory of Josh Piver and all those that were lost on September 11th, I challenge you now, I give you a charge to be good to each other. And your greatness will come from there.